Wade is guarding Bryant. Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up with the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Good morning, Insurance Syndicate. Happy winning on Wednesday. You know what time it is. It is 9 a.m. Central. We are here live within the Syndicate HQ. Hope you guys are all having an amazing kickstart to the week. Start dropping in where you're tuning in from and that you can't hear and see me in the comments. We've got an action-packed show for y'all. You can tell in the description what we're going to be talking about. Wow, I can see all the views already popping in. Love to see it. Start dropping those weekly wins in the comments as well so that we can celebrate y'all. Real quick, before we get into it, Viva Virtual Solutions is the main sponsor of Winning on Wednesday. They are a preferred vendor here within the Insurance Syndicate. I just got to give a huge shout out to Lily Davies. You can see her in the comments now, and Rob Lopez too. We just could not do it without y'all here within the Insurance Syndicate. Everything that you're doing for our members, for all of our other channels, and all the clips and editing and everything. There's just so much time that goes into that. Thank you so much, Lily. And again, shout out to Rob Lopez for everything they're doing on the virtual assistant side for Clearview Insurance is our company. I'm probably confusing y'all. You're like, wait, we got a bunch of Redwood boys on here. Redwood, I guess, technically is still around, but shout out to Viva and everything y'all are doing. We used you on the Redwood side and now obviously using you on the Clearview side. So thank you guys so much. Again, let me know that you can hear and see me in the comments. Cool. What's up, Todd? I see you in there, Lily. Hey, Patty, good morning. Start dropping those weekly wins. Because it is, here's my button. I feel like we haven't done it in a little bit. Right, it's the main point of the show is to drop those weekly wins in the comments. Well, winning on Wednesday. I like it. Drop them in the comments. I don't care how big or how small. You guys may have seen my post yesterday, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say it again here on the show. Shout out to Brad and Emma Lynch. They're probably not tuning in right now. I think it's first day for one of their kiddos, so they are busy. But they recently joined the internal team, and through some training and management through my guy Todd Wilson and myself and the rest of the team, in their first 45 days, they did a little bit over 110,000 in new business premium sold on the property and casualty side of things. So shout out to Brad and Emma Lynch. Seriously, that's just mad impressive to be able to knock out that much premium in seriously like your first 45 days. So just had to give them a shout out. My weekly win is definitely a team win. Couldn't do it without my team. And it's awesome. It took me quite a while to get to the point of where I ever was doing 100,000 in that amount of time frame. So keep up the amazing work, y'all. Really appreciate y'all. And again, keep dropping them in the comments. Hey, Trista, what's going on? Oh, Pops, you're not going to believe who's watching right now. Clint Strom is on here. You better start dropping some comments, Clint. I got Pops on the show for you, and I'm going to go ahead and just bring him on, y'all. You guys know who my Pops is, but Pops, give him a little bit of background. Who is David Kampert? What all you got going on, my man?
Hey, guys, man, I'm super excited to be in-house today in Syndicate HQ, so super excited to be on the show today. A little bit about me. I tell you what, I've been in insurance since 1992. That's when I got hired by State Farm way back in the day. Which, man, never ever thought I would be in insurance, but tell you what, was just super happy to have a job at that point. And but I tell you, all these years later, now I've actually switched and moved over to the life and health side, predominantly the health side, selling health insurance, and man, just really love it. But super excited to talk about some of the things that we've done in the past, but then also encouraging people to look forward to the future, and I think that's so important. And one of the things I've always loved about you, Joe, man, you're always looking forward to the future, right? You're running forward to the future.
Yep.
But I tell you what, man, it keeps things exciting, keeps things changing, and that's what you got to do to be able to keep winning.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's go all the way back, because I was just talking to somebody about this, and obviously, we got to catch up yesterday, and kind of what I'm doing with call sync and stuff like that. And it's funny, like, just talking to some of these agents that complain about, calls or leads in general or whatever. And it's like, y'all have no freaking idea. So take us back to, obviously, I know, you started with just having a job with State Farm and Big Red, but ultimately, those first, kind of months, first really year, that you started up your scratch agency, it's like anybody complaining about leads, y'all, like, his leads were the phone book, man. Take us back, like, walk us through some of that journey. Just because I know it's like, it's a big piece of your journey, but it was also something I think that, kind of held you back later on in life when Redwood was growing and doing everything. But then ultimately, again, change, able to overcome, and ultimately, again, just change in the freaking world we're living in, where you can just hit a play button and take calls versus having to, pick up a phone book and dial. Take
right, absolutely. I think about, so I started with State Farm as a scratch agent, and in all of my wisdom, decided to move to a place where I didn't know anybody. I had no money. And then I also moved into a town with a scratch agency where there was a 25-year State Farm agent who had been in there. And this was basically a little suburb of Indianapolis. And somehow thinking that, hey, I'm set up for success to be able to do this. And I should have known right from the very beginning, because back then you wanted to put your office in what you thought was a very visible area. And so I had the spot picked out on one of the main streets in town. And that other 25-year agent said, no, he's not going there. I don't want my people mistaking his office for my office and going to his office instead of me. And so he nixed the idea. So my agency manager literally said, no, you can't go there. So I went into a dilapidated shopping center that was literally, it was a wreck. And got in there and started the office. But it was me and a sewing shop, and that was the only place in there. It was a phone book. You're trying to talk to people, and you think about now, back then it was billboards and location. That's how you tried to have a presence with people. And today it is so different, and so literally every night, I'd go home, eat dinner with you guys, go back to the office, and my lead list was a phone book. It was literally opening the phone book, starting in the A's. And I would just start hand dialing down through that list, trying to get somebody who was willing to talk to me. Back then you didn't have caller ID, so you didn't know who was calling. Somebody was calling you from the, local. It was a local call. So you'd answer the phone, and I'm sitting here just literally begging, asking. And we all know in sales, man, that's the last thing you want to be doing. And I would just be begging, asking for a quote. And, man, I tell you what, it was tough going for sure.
Well, and y'all were doing all kinds of different freaking products with State Farm too, right?
Yeah, it was home. We had a home quota, an auto quota, a health insurance quota, a bank card quota, a credit card quota, life quotas. It was just everything, and it didn't matter what you did for the month. Literally, nothing was ever good enough. And that's. I guess that's what managers do. It's never good enough. You want to push your people to try to do better, but trying to sell all of those different products and to master all of those products and to be able to have any kind of conversation with people. Yeah, man, it was tough.
Well, that's okay. So captive. I like where this is going, guys. We're just going to spitball and like shop talk. We have some things that we're going to talk about, but ultimately I did want this to kind of be more fluid and just like, let's just go with the flow. You're a captive State Farm person, but you have all of those different products to master, right, in the quotas and everything.
Right.
Now we're looking at the independent side where, okay, even though that was a captive kind of scenario, there were still all these different products that you have to know and master and everything like that. Obviously, on the independent side, now, you have hundreds of freaking carriers that you need to know, master, and sell. So it's not necessarily the product, even though it is. It's more so like the carrier. Like how do we go about like mastering and learning all of that crap? Or I guess, again, when we were starting Redwood, a lot of that was what you were doing was the carrier relationship, the back office management. How do you freaking master? Like what do we do there? Right.
Yeah. And I think if you talk to most any independent agency, and I think this is true for on the life and health side, whether it's on the PNC side, regardless of what it is, you may have 100 carriers, but honestly, you probably write about 2 or 3. And I think people want all these choices, and choices are good to an extent, but what you want is a good product. You want a solid product, because again, what sales is about, it's not about selling a product, it's about solving a problem. So, and there's products out there that companies have put forward, whether it's a life insurance product, a health product, whatever it is, and you quickly figure out like, okay, this thing's going to solve a lot of problems. This is going to solve 90% of the problems I'm talking to people about. And so that's where you sit. And so sometimes it's, okay, we're going to use this product because it solves a problem. Well, the other thing is just ease of use. And so I think when you start working with things, man, if I got to take 3 hours to get a quote out, on a particular product to work with somebody, when I can do it in 15 minutes over here, and there's not that much difference, there's some difference there, but hey, if I can be that much more efficient with it, then okay, that's how I'm going to start to master that, and so I think it's about, you've got to look at it from multiple angles. And then some of it's about relationship, some of it's, when we looked at, hey, our top carrier at Redwood was Progressive. Why? Because we had an amazing rep.
Still do.
We had,
still
yeah,
is.
we still do. And that relationship opened many, many doors for us to get into places that we wouldn't have been able to get into. And so again, I think it's not a cookie cutter answer. That's not an easy answer to say, hey, which ones of these should we master? But again, having all of those choices then enabled us to get to a place of where we could get to a solid 2, 3, 4 companies. If that's all you got, you don't know any better. Right. And in some cases, you know what, you got to work with what you got, and you go ahead and go forward with that. But if you've got choices, a lot of times things will start to shake out, and you'll figure out, hey, trucking insurance, you talk a lot about that. So, hey, what carriers, what relationships am I going to need to be able to be successful here? What products am I going to need to be able to have? What kind of rate do I need to have be able to have some success here? And so again, I think those solid carriers, those relationships, all that stuff shakes out to the bottom and helps you, where you can find success.
Oh yeah. Anybody that's on the PNC side, drop in the comments if you miss State Auto. It's like, come on, man, you had the best freaking platform, and now I know Safeco's like made some improvements and everything, and but yeah, it was I loved that freaking system, man. And they put so much freaking money into it, man. And you talk about ease of use and the ability to just quote and fire those things out, man. It's like, I miss you, State Auto. You are such an awesome platform and carrier, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So going back to the carriers and everything, if you're established, you guys, this, right? It is kind of like that 80-20 where, hey, I could have 100, but I'm writing a majority of that with a small percentage of those 100, right? So I'm going to take it back even like, okay, I'm still Allstate at this time. So are you. You're corporate Allstate, right? And I think, well, at that time, you were back to the FSL position. So you had the TSL, but then back to FSL. And I'm thinking about maybe, it's ECP days, maybe I do an ECP office, whatever in that time, right? And then it was, hey, you know what? We're going to try this independent thing, right? And I remember when we first started as an independent, we were very blessed and fortunate to get in when we did. Anybody watching this, some of what we're saying is a bit outdated because it's really difficult to go out there and just get these direct appointments these days. They're just not giving them out. I'll tell you, even on the Clearview side of things, and we're doing millions of dollars of new business a month, there are still carriers that tell us no because they're not appointing, right? Regardless of that production or the group that we can leverage. Right. But I remember, again, in that time frame, we got in like right at the tail. It's still a great time, but right at the tail end of when they started shifting to basically you got to join somebody, right? You got to go somewhere to get access, especially if you're new or no experience or it's captive experience to independent. And I remember coming over, man, and just like, give me every freaking carrier in Texas, dude. Like I was the guy, you guys have heard me say it on the show before. Like I was the yes man. If it could be insured, I'm your guy was my slogan. And what happens is you just spread yourself so freaking thin. And a lot of what we're going to talk about here on the show today is kind of trial by fire, right? Lessons learned where there was a lesson, even though I spread myself super thin, I was saying yes. I was, taking a month and a half to close deals for not even $100 of commission because I didn't even know what E&S and brokerage was and all this stuff. The lesson learned was that was the light bulb moment for me of we don't need all the carriers in one state. We need the best carriers in all the states. And Dad, you talked about billboards and location. in the world we're living in today, it's still all about the billboard and location. It's just a little bit more digital. And then the non-resident piece is what changed the freaking game for us, man. I wonder, I mean, literally, what do you think we would look like if we had just only done business in Texas? Would we have ever even started the aggregator thing? Would we have, I mean, it's crazy to even think how powerful those non-resident appointments were for us.
Yeah, I don't think any of this would exist, quite honestly, with that. And I think that's a really great question to ask is, today, and the thing you have to remember, the landscape is constantly changing. Where are the billboards today? Where is it that you're talking about your message, or where is it that people are talking about the problems that they have? And I think I love Coach Burt, when he talks about, you need to solve problems. That's really what we're in the business to do. And it's like the more difficult problems that you solve, the more value that you earn, and the more value that you bring. And so I think it's not about products that you're selling, it's about problems that you're solving. And so, but you have to, somewhere there has to be that conversation, or people have to know that you're the guy that can solve that problem. So how are you doing that? And I think, and that's where I think you really helped elevate Redwood, because it was about making that change. It wasn't about billboards and anything anymore. It was about Facebook groups. That's where we were putting up billboards. We were putting up billboards in Facebook group. You were putting them up every single day, and they were right up in people's faces. And so they knew that, hey, Joe Kampert could write business, anywhere and everywhere.
Yep.
And that was kind of the thing that, and so I think giving us access to much broader markets, it's one thing, you've got to have the carriers to be able to go there, but then you've also got to have the mindset, okay, so how do we get there? How do we start doing business, I think in those places, but you got to think bigger than just where you're at,
Right.
And that's, I think what we were talking about too, a part of winning is you've just got to have a bigger mindset, and the wider net that you can cast with intention and thought. It's not just going super thin, or across the board, but it's like, yeah, I've got some success here. Let's take this further. And that's a difficult thing to manage, I think.
Well, and then you add in, if you're recruiting and bringing agents into that as well, right? Where, not only are you, having to, and even, okay, yeah, I've been selling and I'm efficient and proficient. I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Guess what, y'all? I've been doing it 11 years now, and I've learned something new yesterday about Todd, if you're still watching, about a tiny home and how carriers are classifying them. If they're wheels, the tiny homes are being classified as travel trailers. And it's like, really? Oh, I would think that would probably be like a manufactured home or something like that. Right. It's like, no, they're classifying it as a travel trailer. Oh, you learned something new, right? But it's like every day there's something changing in this industry, right? So even if I know my stuff, man. But then it's like, dude, tomorrow it could be different, where I'm having to adapt and adjust. But then ultimately, again, if you've got people running with you, they have to be able to adapt and adjust. And how are you handling that as well? I think that was something too, when we really started, well, and I guess before we even really started growing, it was, you hear me say it all the time, like, we paid to get in the right room. It's why me and Laura have our saying, like, we're a team, we're strong, we're tough, we optimize deals and make money. But how do we do that? We spend money to get in the right room. And that room with Cody Askins changed everything for us. Maybe talk through some of that before we kind of get into more of like the Redwood stuff. I do want to ask you, like, literally, like, we're going to go over our mistakes and everything on this show, y'all. So stay tuned in. But what was that for you, Dad? Obviously, I know what it was for me. And the reason I bring this up, I don't know if you saw it in your memories. That event was 5 years ago yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So it was the first ever Power Players retreat. And I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me. And it's, my hair's super long and we're up there doing House of Dreams. What was that event for you? Because as far as like your mindset and what that opened up to, again, thinking bigger for that change, right? And maybe we didn't even know, I guess you don't know what you don't know. We didn't even know that change was out there for us.
Right.
Talk through some of that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a couple different pieces to this, but I think coming into that retreat, and we've talked about this story before, I think from a mindset standpoint, I was in a really tough place. I think we were struggling as an agency, which everyone does when you're first getting going. There's so much thrust behind that plane to try to get it moving down the runway, and all of that effort with very little results, because you're moving forward, but it seems really, really slow at the time. And the amount of effort that it's requiring to do that is really, really tough. And it starts to feel like when I was a State Farm agent, and I felt like at that time, we talked about timing, it wasn't the right time for me to be starting an agency with the kind of family that I had, and what it was requiring of me to sacrifice was not worth it. I was not willing to choose my business, over my family. And so my mindset was not in the right place. And so I think what Power Players gave to me was again, you get around people that have a mindset that's different than yours, and it just changes us. We're created to be in community, but that community, if it's bad community or good community, it rubs off on us. It really makes a difference. And one of the things I was thinking about as I was driving in this morning, we talk about winning on Wednesday, but our wins, sometimes we need other people who are winning for us. When I don't feel like winning today, I need someone on my team or someone in my circle or someone who's in my tribe, who's in my community, who's close to me. They're going to win for me that day because their mindset, where they're at, what they're doing, and when they're pushing forward, when they're winning on Wednesday, it helps me win on Wednesday when I don't feel like winning today. And that's what Power Players was for me. That first event, when I saw these guys winning and the things that they were doing, and it pulls you forward. And so I think about in this industry, you have to surround yourselves with quality people. And sometimes that's hard to figure out, right? Because when we're on social media, the images that we put up, all the success we talk about having, all the things we talk about doing, you got to get in proximity to those people. That's what Power Players was. It wasn't seeing somebody through a screen. It wasn't seeing a perfectly edited video. It was literally up close, personal conversations with these guys. And you need proximity to figure out, okay, is this guy for real? Are these results for real? Are what they're doing for real? Are they winning themselves, or are they helping everyone else around them win? Right. And so when you get around, I think, the right people with the right attitude, the right mindset, it really makes a difference. It completely changed the trajectory of our agency. And really, we would not be where we are today without that 5 years, without that moment 5 years ago, for sure.
Isn't that crazy to think about?
Yeah, it is.
That was 5 years. And one thing I want to touch on there too, because there's like this stigma around the community, right? Or the reason people don't get in the room is because you're going to poach my people. And it's like, y'all, then you're just looking at the wrong room. Going back again to that Power Players event, none of us poached anybody, right?
No,
It wasn't. No. It's not like you have to go and like, oh man, I really want to work with them, or just again win with them, right? And be in that community. Right. But like, man, I don't want to give up my contracts or whatever. And it's like, again, then you're looking at the wrong room, because you don't have to give up your contracts, right? I mean, it's like you can literally show up and learn and take away what we took away from somebody like Cody, who's not even operating really in the property and casualty space, but he changed everything about our PNC business. Right. And it wasn't anything where like, hey, contractually, I have to give you this. Or so the reason I say that, my challenge to you, because I love that you said, dude, people winning for you. Again, if I come into this office and I'm feeling down or whatever, but then Todd and Hanky are having a great freaking day, or like, I mean, you almost want to win with them, because it's like, dude, I don't want to be left freaking behind. Right. And so I think that's really important. Right. But then also, again, like how we can do that, y'all, like, why don't you just set up a Zoom room with somebody you want to freaking win with? I can't tell you, Ashley, I'm sorry, is it Molnix? I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name, but her name is Ashley. She was just on the most recent Ultimate Agent with Cody. I've got to meet her a couple times at 8%. Bro, she runs free Friday calls, like with all of her final expense scripts on how she's absolutely crushing over the phone. Just hop on and learn. And it's like, okay, so like you don't actually have to go sign on the dotted line and again, give them this contract or this or whatever to be in that community. So I think that's really important to understand too, because there is like, people don't show up to that, and that's kind of their excuse as to why. It's like, well, yeah, because they're just going to recruit me or whatever. And it's like, that's just not the freaking case. And
I'm telling you, if you've got somebody on your team, regardless of how much production they are creating for you, if they're not that, if their attitude and everything else that they're changing in your environment, is a negative kind of thing, or the way they get that business is not, really the way your culture is, you got to get rid of those people, man. I mean, that stuff is infectious, and particularly when you've got people working remote, it's even harder to try to figure that stuff out. But I think, on a team, I think you have to you really have to put that mindset first, and I think, are people not only wanting to win for themselves, but are they wanting others to win with them? And I think, and that's a perfect example you were talking about there, Joe, of someone who's, hey man, I'm talking about, just sharing information and knowledge that, someone has learned along the way to be able to help others win. But then it's also that kind of mindset for their people on their team. They're willing to give, they're willing to do that, but they also have a mindset. Hey, they still need to get around people too. There's still things they need to learn. They still haven't arrived yet. And I think that's so critical, that we're always continuing to learn and to grow and to be around people that have those right kind of mindsets. But sometimes, we leave people on our teams that we really need to get rid of, because they can have a tremendous impact on our team.
1,000%. 1,000%. Rich Sterling. What's up, Rich? Good to see you on here, brother. Askins was a game changer in the industry. 100%, man. Tony says it a lot. He was the catalyst behind a lot of what these communities now have evolved into. And sad to say, what some of them have evolved into. And it's like not what they're supposed to be, right? But it did start with Cody. I will give Cody that. And so real quick, just to catch everybody up. So we're talking about Redwood and just kind of those beginning days. Me and my dad are both ex-Allstate. Dad was on the corporate. Well, I guess he was State Farm, then Allstate. Always on the corporate side of things. And then I was on the agent side of things. And then ultimately, back in 2018, we decided we wanted to start up our own scratch independent agency. And so kind of where we're at in that story is, hey, I mean, one, we both come from captive world. So how do you make money in the captive world? Like, you sell auto and home insurance, and that's how you make money in insurance, right? And then obviously it evolves so much more from that, from this Power Players retreat that we were just recapping there, which again was 5 years ago yesterday. Just crazy to me that it's already been 5 years since that. But then that is what really changed the game for us, where it was, okay, hey, we're not just hitting the phones and selling auto and home insurance. Like, dude, we can show other people this other opportunity and help them win in this space and in this industry, because there's a lot of sharks. There's a lot of freaking backstabbing in this industry, right? And so kind of where we're at, where it's like, okay, I've got to get out of production. This was probably like the hardest part for me, y'all. So listen up. And maybe you're going through this too. Like, I knew I wanted to bring people on. Shout out to David and Elle Denning, because we were going through Closers Click and they pushed me on this every freaking week. And I was scared to do it, because I knew as soon as I went full into, hey, all I have to do is scout and bring people. I'm the headhunter now, but not on the client side, on the agent side. I knew it was going to remove me from production, but my production is what's paying me. So as soon as I go over here, I'm like, man, I hope it freaking works, because otherwise I'm going to have to go back to production. And if I'm in production, then I can't do this over here. But this is what we ultimately agreed on that we need to do in order to grow this organization. Y'all, that teeter-totter was so freaking difficult for me to finally just say, you know what? Anything that's coming in, I'm going to give it to somebody. Guess what? They're never going to be a Joe. They're never going to be a David. Don't expect somebody to be you. They just never will be, right? But it's like that release of that control. It was so freaking difficult, man, because I'm like, you'll hear phone calls where like, dude, I would totally have freaking closed that. But that's not the point, right? If you're really trying to grow and build this organization and help other people win, you got to go find other people and show them what this thing can do for their lives. That was by far, at least for me, like that was one of the hardest freaking transitions and decisions, where I'm just not selling anymore. Like all I'm doing is headhunting and finding agents to come into this organization. Instead of a sales call, I'm on a recruiting pitch. Right. And who knows how many calls that's going to take to get them to the closing line or the finish line. And so just words of encouragement to anybody that's going through that. I'm been right there with you. I still honestly sometimes struggle with it. Obviously, I've been out of production for the most part for years. I wrote one policy last year, which it's actually coming up for renewal this month. But outside of that, like I've made more money in insurance showing other people how to win than I ever did when I was just keeping it to myself and being like, Joe's the best. And this is just how you do it. Not to take away from the small individual agent, right? But I think there is at some point an obligation that we have to show other people this, but it can be really freaking tough to make that switch.
Yeah, I think it's really hard. I think a great example of this is when you think about professional sports, how many great players make great coaches? Not very many. I mean, it is a hard transition to go from being the guy, being the player, to now being the coach. Because now you've got to translate everything that just came to you so naturally when you were doing it. You've got to translate that in a way for someone else to be able to get that.
Right.
But then you're working with all these different people, and I think sometimes great players don't make great coaches. And that's the thing. And so you either need to learn how to do that. And I think sometimes that's why I think it's important for us to get out of our industry. So where can I learn how to be a better leader, to be a better coach of people, to be able to, how can I get from people what I want to get from them, Right. And so we need to learn how to do that, because just showing them, here's what I did. And sometimes what works for you doesn't necessarily work for somebody else.
Yep.
And so you've got to be able to adapt and change for that. But like you said, you've also got to have the time to be able to do that. And so when you're doing a both and, it's really difficult to do that, to be able to still be in production, to still be returning phone calls, to still be able to providing the level of service that you did, and be able trying to help, people on your team. And so sometimes maybe, okay, you've just got to grow to a point to be able to bring somebody in to do that. And maybe it is getting someone who can be the coach, who can be the person, the office manager, the person, whatever, the leader that's going to be able to lead your sales team. But you got to have somebody doing it. Because I'm telling you, if you just let people go on their own and think that they're going to get it done, it's not good. It doesn't happen with us. Why do you think it's going to happen with him?
It's wild, man. That makes me think of freaking Aaron, man. I won't say his last name, and I know he's not watching this, but that dude literally, quotes going out. The notes just meticulous. I'm like, man, this is freaking amazing. I say quotes going out. To mine, I thought they were. And then it's like, dude, almost 60 days later, I'm seeing all the notes, the prices, who the carrier was winning. I'm like, man, none of this is closing, man. And it turns out, dude, he just wasn't even sending the quotes because I guess he was scared to get on the phone with them or something, man. It's to your point where, dude, if you're not spot checking and actually, looking into it, people left to their own devices, bro, you'd be amazed. Where I'm like, bro, you quoted it, you're winning, and you're not sending them the quote. That is just mind freaking blowing to me, man. But again, as you start to bring people on, I think kind of where it starts, where that relationship really begins, it begins with a Tia, because Tia had belief in us. I don't think, again, we'd be where we are if we didn't have that first person actually believe in us, even though we didn't 100% believe in what we're doing because we just had never done it before.
Right.
So I think having somebody, people in your community and on your team that believe where you're trying to go, or at least believe in you enough to ride with you there, is so freaking important, man. And I think, again, obviously once Tia got going, which she's got the best contracts in the freaking country. But then it's okay, we start to learn, we start to get better. Right. And then it's okay, we weren't anything crazy, the goose heads or the bright ways. Hey, throw us 5, throw us 10 grand, man, sign on the dotted line. We're paying 90 tens. Come on, man. So yeah, we started growing like crazy there. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Pops, and wanted you to kind of elaborate on, I was just talking with a gentleman yesterday. I won't name him, but he's like, bro, one of my biggest mistakes in my business I've ever made. And he was paying a marketing company over $3,000 a month and signed a 12-month contract. And they've delivered him 3 leads in total this year. But he's locked in. And he's like, bro, I'm spending over $3,000 a month for nothing. One of the biggest mistakes I've made. Pops, what do you think was the biggest mistake you made in freaking Redwood, or mistakes? I know we had multiple times, but what was the biggest one you think? And what would you, again, how would you educate and then also encourage any of the listeners as well?
Right. Well, I think, rule number one, I think when you're growing as a business, you're going to hit ceilings within your business. And that ceiling requires you to change. Why? Because what I did yesterday isn't working today. I can't do what I did with 10 people, with 100 people. Processes, the way you're doing things. And so business becomes very, very difficult as you're growing and scaling, and you reach those ceilings. You start bumping into it. That creates pain in the organization across multiple levels. It's either stuff's taking a long time, stuff's falling through the cracks, there's something happening. You've got to make a change, right? And and we had to do that, right? And so for us, it was really in the area of technology. What we did with a few, and me on a spreadsheet and just, manually doing everything, you can't do that with 30 people. You can do that with 5, but when you've got 700 lines of, at that time of progressive commissions to reconcile
just
for one carrier, for 30 agents, and assigning all of those transactions to get those to go to the right thing, So, okay, that's pain point. That's a ceiling. I've got to do something different, right? But you've got to do your homework. And that's probably the one thing I would say. I think I needed to do a better job of really doing my due diligence when we started looking at, okay, we needed a technology provider to be able to help us, with commissions, policies, all that stuff. And I think, to a fault, you can believe the best in people, and I think sometimes you believe in what they say, but you need to examine what they do. You need to really examine what they're doing. And how do you do that? It's talking to people that have already got it. It's just, it's looking at everything about them, how long have they been doing it, et cetera. And probably if possible, if you can get a trial period, you need to do that. And so we did that, right? I made a choice to say, okay, believed in what somebody said at the last hour. That's probably something too. You don't make decisions in the last hour, but I did that and said, all right, let's do this, and wanted to believe the best in somebody. And it was probably one of the worst decisions we ever made. And I think it had a significant impact on the morale of our group.
How does that impact even just the individual that made the decision, right? Because for me, I'm a man for the people, dude. I will always try to believe in the best in somebody to a fault, quite a few times, right?
Right.
But how does that adjust how you go into that? Like, does it change who I am? Right? Like where I'm not going to believe in you because I've been burned so many times? Or is it more, again, or am I just able, I'm going to still give them a shot, but I've just learned to do my due diligence better. But again, at the same time, anybody can freaking show the due diligence can be fraud too, right? It's all, they can make it look freaking nice and pretty. And all right, I did all my homework and then I'm still getting burned, right?
Right.
How does that change your approach, or does it change literally internally, or I don't know?
Yeah. Hang on, I gotta.
Your laptop.
I didn't have my battery. Man, I was running on battery this whole time. I was like, oh, that's gonna be bad. No, I think what it changes is I think you need to learn from experiences, right? So one of the things we talk about is remember where you've been. And part of that remembering is remembering what you're learning from these things. Don't be so quick to move on from that mistake. And sometimes it may not necessarily have been your fault, but it was something, there's something to learn in the mix of that. And so I think, for me, it's about, okay, what could I have done differently to have had maybe a different result? And in some cases, there's nothing you could have done differently. Like you did the due diligence, you did everything you thought you could do. And at the end of the day, the person just didn't deliver. Why? Because we're not perfect. Everything's not going to work every single time. Every relationship that you have is not going to work every single time. Every aggregator that you sign up with is not going to work every time. It just, that's business and that's life, right? And so sometimes you just got to pick yourself up and say, you know what? Hey, that one didn't work. That was a bad choice. Now, what's tough is when you're dragging a whole organization behind you.
No, what's tough is you got to live with that bad choice too.
And your choice is what impacted not just you, but everyone else. It's the same in our families. It's the same in our companies. The decisions that we make and the fallout that creates falls on everyone around you, not just on you, right? So it impacts everybody around you. But sometimes, and again, this is what I can be prone to, is paralysis by analysis.
Right.
Then sometimes I don't want to move. I'm not going to change. I'm real slow to do that next thing, And so I remember, I heard from somebody, you need to fail fast, right? So we need to fail from that moment. We're going to fail in that moment, but very quickly, as fast as we can, we've got to get back up and learn as fast as we can and keep moving. And I think those people are success. It's not because they made every right decision or every right choice. It's because they failed fast. They failed very quickly. So they learned from what that was. They got back up and they kept going forward. And so I think it's true for us as well. We've got to learn from those things. You got to repair, sometimes there's repair work that's got to be done because you just broke a lot of stuff. Right. You broke a lot of trust. Yep. It's not just physical things or technological things. It's emotional things. All that stuff gets broken in the process. Got to repair all that. So they're costly mistakes, but ultimately, hopefully you learn from those things and you can minimize them going forward.
That's what's Todd saying in the comments. Fall forward, right? Not backwards, man.
Yep.
Sometimes it sucks falling forward on your face, dude. But at the end of the day, it's one of the things that if you ain't breaking things, you're not growing, right? And again, that goes back to really what you guys have all heard me talk about a lot is our house of dreams, right? Which is, what are you really trying to build? You know, for us, that event that we went to changed the house. It was like, dude, we're ripping the roof off and we're building, man. Not necessarily saying that we're going full skyscraper. Like, we don't, you know, need to have millions of agents and all this and this, but like our mindset shifted where the house needed to be different. We wanted to build our house bigger and stuff. But at the same time, there are agents, and trust me, I'm on calls all freaking day. It's literally like my main job is literally on calls with agents. And I love to do it, but it's some of them, dude, like, maybe it is because they've got burned or whatever. And they're like, screw other people, dude. I'm just doing this myself. I'm not dealing with, like, you know, or Pete, when we first met Pete, he's like, bro, I took $80,000 in roll-up debt from 3 guys that, you know, were buddies of mine in college or whatever. And it's like, it'd be really difficult to get hit with $80,000 and have to move back in with your parents and then still want to go and recruit again. Right. So again, I don't know. We could probably go multiple ways on that, because it's like to each their own. But for me, again, I just think there is just this obligation that we have to show other people what this freaking industry can do. And again, not to say that it's perfect, not to say that it's going to work for everybody. Right. But then that's why it's my mission where, hey, dude, I'm at least the roofer last night. Y'all, okay, I have to talk about this. So this roofer.
Hey, let me say one thing before you say that real quick, okay? Because we're going to move on from this.
Yeah.
Hey, you're winning on, and I'm saying this to someone who's watching this. You're winning on Wednesday doesn't have to look like the other guy's winning on Wednesday. It's okay to have a one-person shop. I was talking with a guy not too long ago, leader of FMO. He's got thousands of agents. And he said, dude, honestly, if I had to do it over again, I'd have 15 killers.
Yep.
Man, I'd have 15 guys, women, guys. And when I say guys, say that again. I'd have 15 people that would just crush it. And dude, game over. Game over. Like I could do that all day long. He said, now I can't back up, right? I've already offered this opportunity to so many people. I've got all this. It's as big as it is. So, you know, don't chase something, chase your dream, not somebody else's dream. Your house may be a 1-bedroom. You don't have to have a 5-bedroom. And that's okay. If you're winning on Wednesday is with one other person, then that's awesome. That's amazing. And you can still crush and win that way. Do it the way you want to do it. Doesn't have to be big and huge to be successful. You can be successful being a small, you know, whatever operation. Now, back to your roofing guy that you were talking about. I just want to get that in there.
I agree with that, though, because, again, it depends on what in our house of dreams, right? It's your calling. You know, for me, with, you know, how legacy driven I am. And like, again, I just go back to that agency, you know, that started 100+, Crane Insurance, right? Was the 100+ year agent that used to visit on, started. I mean, it's like when I think of that, man, it's like, if I want something like that, I got to show people this opportunity. But again, I will say, even though my heart is in that direction, there are days where I'm like, dude, why? Like, give me 10, 15 killers, bro, and we're rocking and freaking rolling, dude. But I don't think, again, going maybe back to your guy, he wouldn't know what he does now without the 1,000 to where he would know how to run the 15 killers, right?
Right.
Where it's like, would I have even been ready for the killers for my organization if I hadn't gone through the 100+, right, or whatever, and had people working with you? So, I don't know. Yeah, so I had this roofer out front, and so me and my wife, we're still tenants in our house, but we've known the landlord forever. We have like a custom lease and stuff like that, and just we haven't been quite ready to, because I don't want to move again, and we have just such a killer deal in location and schools and all that stuff, so we haven't moved yet. But she has Allstate for her carrier, and they're denying the roof, and they've denied the roof claim like I can't tell you how many times. So our roof is kind of, for the lack of a better term, just a total piece of shit, and it's like bad. Like, we need a new freaking roof, but our landlord is not picking up she's not going to pay for it out of pocket and stuff. So this roofer's talking to me. I'm like, look, bro. He's like, you want me to get up there and take? I was like, dude, I'm telling you, if you can come in with like a good estimate, maybe. I'm telling you right now, though, insurance is not going to pay you on this job. Like, I'm an insurance guy. And he's like, really? He's like, oh, how long you been doing it? And so we're just sitting there talking, and turns out, y'all, this roofer, he's 29 years old. His name's Harrison. I got his phone number. We're literally going to talk because he's actually interested in talking about insurance. Turns out he's already freaking licensed in insurance. Just hadn't found what is the theme we're talking about today? The right community, dude. And we're sitting there talking. I'm like, this younger dude who's already licensed. He's out here banging on freaking doors in Texas, right? Trying to sell freaking roofs door to door. And don't get me wrong. He's like, I'm liking it and stuff, but like, man, I kind of just want something different, but I just haven't quite found that yet. And so I had to share that because I'm sitting there. We had like just done dinner and stuff like that. It's pretty late, like sun's going down, and we're just sitting there chopping it up. Turns out he's already freaking licensed. And I'm like, oh, dude, I got to show him this mortgage-free life stuff. He's already out here door knocking, working with the homeowners. And it was just an amazing conversation with a guy who, again, is looking for a better opportunity. Yep. If I had been like pretty much every other resident where you see that roofer come around, like, nope, close the garage, lock the door, we ain't home, right? Whereas now, like, we may have a new agent joining the team because of that. So pretty crazy. Full circle moment. Again, imagine if you had somebody like that, knowing what we do now versus how we started, it would be just a totally different world and a different ball game, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, obviously, here we are. A lot of people, kind of know the story, but Redwood was purchased actually 2 years ago to the day, damn near, on September 1 of 23. Yeah. And then I became the president of business development with Clearview Insurance. Mom and dad took their exit. Redwood is now owned by Brian Kataya, which is my partner now on the Clearview side. And dad actually pivoted and switched out of property and casualty and went full into the life and health space. Talk through some of that pivot and that change. Anybody that's watched me for years now knows one of my favorite words is pivot. I'm not going backwards or anything. I'm just pivoting, right? Where, hey, I've been in PNC since the 90s. And now I'm going full life and health, right?
Right.
What was that change like? How did it feel making that change? And how do you feel now, kind of as we start to wrap up the show? Like, do you love it? Like, just because I know there are people that I've talked with on the life and health side thinking, man, I may just want to go PNC, dude, and vice versa. Talk through some of that pivot and that change for you.
Yeah. I think for me, it really started when I think we as a PNC agency, and again, this is what Syndicate was about. It's about bringing down barriers and people crossing over into other lines of insurance. And these were silos that, probably 5 years ago, you just didn't do that. You didn't see guys operating in multiple spaces. And so quite honestly, you didn't really know what it was like on the other side. We'll say it that way. Right. But through the relationships that we developed at the Power Player event, meeting these guys who were doing life and health stuff, really kind of exposed us to that side of the business. And so, again, just kind of really eye-opening. And for me inside, as we kind of started, and again, we didn't throw up any numbers at all as Redwood. I think it's hard to do that either to do, again, both. And we talked about, hey,
everybody was licensed to do it. Everybody was licensed to do it. Nobody doing it.
Right. You got to do one or the other. Right. Yeah. So you got to pick that. But there's still something about your learning and being exposed to that industry. So, hey, we still want to do that. And that's either going to be me or it's going to be somebody else. But somebody's got to focus on that. I think to do right by your people, to do right by your customers, you need to know what, you got to know your stuff. It is about who you know, but you still got to know what you know, right? You got to be able to, know your stuff. And that's really hard to do across, I think, both of those channels.
Correct.
And so the more that I got exposed, really, particularly to the health side, again, I really liked it a lot. And again, what I saw, there was a huge need there. People are aging. A lot of people are turning 65. A lot of people are wrestling with health insurance issues right now, particularly in between jobs, that kind of stuff. And so for me, it's about solving problems. We mentioned this earlier, that's what we're all doing. We're solving a problem for people, and it's trying to figure out what is that problem. And for me, the problem was very, very clear with health insurance. And again, being a person of older age, these are problems that are not too far from me.
All right.
So I just, it's like, I was like, yeah, I get that, man. Like, I'm going to be wrestling with that too. I had to wrestle with that with my mom, with my dad, all this different stuff. And so I just really love that part of being able to help people solve problems. And so when the right opportunity came along, and again, that was, everything had to line up,
timing,
right, for me to be able to do this. And sometimes it doesn't, right? So you gotta be able to stick it out. You got to be able to work within what you got. But for me, the opportunity was there to be able to make an exit, to make a pivot, and really to do something that, man, and I really do love it. Literally, I met with a guy yesterday sitting here in your office,
right there.
Yeah. And again, just hearing his story, seeing the fear that he has, the stress that he's got as he's trying to think about, man, trying to figure out this whole Medicare thing and navigating and doing all of that. But literally by the end of that, having him at a place of peace, it's really helping people find peace in their current situation when it comes to, I think, health insurance. It just creates a lot of angst and stuff. And so I really enjoy that part of it. And he's like, when you get to the end of something and they're like, why would I not do this?
Yeah.
Then you've done your job, right? That's not a product sold. That's like, okay, I've solved a problem. That's not a product. That's a problem. And when you solve people's problem, they're like, why would I not do this?
Right.
Then it's very, very clear to them. And so I love it, man. And obviously I need to get better at it. Still have a lot to learn. I'm still learning and growing.
I know that's like part of what we were talking about last night too, just because again, on the Redwood side, you weren't ever really sitting in that full bore sales seat, right?
No,
where it's like now it's, hey, no, I'm sitting in that seat now, right?
Yeah.
But again, when you're looking at it as solving a problem, you're not even having to sell, man. And again, if you've got the right product, it sells itself. Right. By the end of it, they're like, dude, why would I not sign up? Like, I mean, I don't know. Why wouldn't you? I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, but what would keep you signing up today, right? Like nothing. Okay. I wanted to tell you this one. I don't know if you've heard it before, but Luke Acree said it on Monday Mindset. I don't know if it's him or he's quoting somebody, but fear. Right. There's a lot of fear out really just in the world in general, but especially in this industry, there's a lot of agents make fear-based decisions, and fear is false evidence appearing real. And so I love the breakdown of that of like, okay, false evidence appearing real, where I'm scared, right? I'm fearful, but it ain't even freaking real, right? So I just wanted to give you that one. I didn't know if you'd heard that, but I've
no, that's good. I haven't heard that. That's good. I've watched Luke several times. I need to watch him more, man. I always love tuning into his broadcast, man. He just always got some good stuff going there.
He really does. He does.
Yeah, love it.
Well, as we kind of come to a close here, man, what's one kind of final parting word for anybody? We're sitting here winning on Wednesday. We've been talking a lot about community. We've talked about some of our mistakes, but having to get back up and fall forward. What are you going to leave them with? Give them a little nugget.
Man, I tell you, one of the things I was driving in this morning, I was thinking about this. And it's really so true that, and I think winning on Wednesday requires you winning on Tuesday.
Ooh.
I think it's you winning on Tuesday sets you up to win on Wednesday. You don't just show up having done nothing on Tuesday and expect to win on Wednesday. What you won at on Tuesday sets you up to win on Wednesday, and what I won at on Wednesday sets me up to win on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
But it requires you doing, it's just, to me, it's that consistent, disciplined effort that's what's required for winning. And you see it in anything, in sports, in whatever it is. Kobe winning a game on Friday night was because of the way he won on Thursday, when he was in the gym. He did what he did what was expected to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for us, it's, we need to be back, and you got to start now. Did you win this morning?
Right.
Did you get up when the alarm went off? And Cody used to talk to us about this, or did you hit snooze button? Did you lose? Did you, let me snooze at 5 minutes?
Right.
Or did you get up when you had to get up? Did you make your bed when you had to make your bed? All those little things, and that creates momentum. Winning on Tuesday to win on Wednesday, and you put those days back to back to back to back to back to back, the momentum that creates.
A day turns into a week turns into a month turns into a quarter turns into a freaking year, man. I love that. Going back to your, the analogy of the airplane on the runway, a win, y'all, sometimes isn't gonna always be that I'm off the freaking runway, let's go.
Right.
A win is moving a foot forward on that thing, because you keep going a foot forward, that 1 foot turns into 2, then it turns into a yard, then it turns into a freaking mile. Now you're going 700 miles an hour. You're up in the freaking air, right? And you're like, wow, that happened fast, but it doesn't, while it's happening, it doesn't seem very freaking fast, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's good, man. I love it. All right, y'all. Well, we are going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We've had a ton of live views. What's up, Jess? Good to see you on here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, dropping your comments. Appreciate y'all. Happy winning on Wednesday. It is the peak of the week. Go out there, find your good community, because there are bad communities as well. Find a good community, tap in, fall forward, fail fast, and ultimately don't allow fear to dictate your decisions. So thank you, Pops, for hopping on. Again, thank you to all of our members. Couldn't do it without you. Happy winning on Wednesday. We'll see y'all next week at 9 a.m. Central. Later.